Hi guys, this is Sheldon, and in this video series I will try to go over each class on Turtle WoW, covering all their changes, their new abilities, and how these might affect their capabilities in both leveling, PvE and PvP, as well as how they might create new opportunities for new builds and playstyles.
And in today's video, we'll be taking a closer look at the Warlock here on Turtle WoW. The Warlock here on Turtle WoW and see what has changed. So let's start off by reading the words of the developers. Warlocks did not receive any major changes in the first wave of class changes and continue to lack proper identity between their three specializations. While you certainly had an Affliction Warlock with more potent dots, tanky Soul Link Warlock for player combat, or the most favorite Demonic Sacrifice / Ruin Warlock, they all were just a Shadow Bolt turret with barely any difference in gameplay. New changes will focus on enabling new spell rotations that better reinforce the fantasy of playing each of the specializations. Alright, sounds good. First off, baseline changes. Soul Shards will now stack to 3 instead of 1, and that's gotta be a huge relief for many Warlocks, because this seems to be a great quality of life change. Because I think, as far as I know, a lot of the gameplay revolves around having these Soul Shards to be able to cast your or summon your demons and probably also some of your spells. I'm not deep into Warlock, so just so you guys know. And the next one, Soul Bags are getting a passive effect similar to Hunter's Quiver and Ammo Pouches. The effect is your spells have a X% chance to not consume a reagent, with the chance percentage ranging from 5% to 25%, increasing with the size of the bag. So this is also just on par with this, the first one here, the stacking effect, now also a chance to not consume a soul shard. I'm guessing these are soul shard bags, and that's also got to be really nice and really some great convenience, quality of life change. And then the better bags you get, the higher this chance. So now there's a great incentive to actually, use these bags. I'm not sure that there were actually Warlocks were actually using these bags, but now at least there's quite a big incentive to get such a bag. Yeah, and also with the stacks of 3 instead of 1, you're gonna have soul shards for days. And then the next one, Infernal Stones, price reduced to 10 silver, and Demonic Figurine price to 20 silver. In addition, both will be able to be placed in soul bags and benefit from the new soul bag effect. Okay, so even more reagents that are usable, and not only these soul shards with the bags. So that's great. Drain Soul has seen a rework and now does the following: drains the soul of the target, causing X shadow damage over 6 seconds. This damage is dealt slowly at first and builds up as the drain reaches its full duration. If the target dies while being drained and yields experience or honor, the caster gains a soul shard. Soul shards are required for other spells, yes. And here we have the ranks with the damage values. Every tick of damage has a 16, almost 17% spell power scaling coefficient, and the mana cost. And apparently rank 5 is a new rank and some mana cost increase. I don't know if the damage has changed on these ranks. It doesn't say anything about that, so I guess the damage is the same, except for, of course, the new rank. But the mana cost has increased, it seems. Soulfire now has 2 new ranks acquired at earlier levels and slightly shifted the level requirements of the current Soulfire ranks. With this change, the current ranks of Soulfire have become the lower level versions, so make sure you train your higher rank. Soulfire now has 2 new ranks acquired at earlier levels and slightly shifted the level requirement of the current Soulfire ranks. With this change, the current ranks of Soulfire have become the lower level versions, so make sure you train the higher ranks. So rank 1, level 30, rank 2, level 38, and then rank 3 has been moved to level 46 instead of 48, and rank 4 has been moved to 54 instead of 56. And Soulfire scales more with spell power, gaining 125% of your spell power as damage instead of 100%. Due to this spell now having scaling above 100%, its description was updated to specify that it benefits greatly from spell damage. Very interesting. Soulfire's cooldown has been reduced from 1 minute to 30 seconds now. And Soulfire, if I remember correctly, isn't that very similar to, animation-wise at least, Pyroblast? Isn't that the one? Yeah, I think it is. Yep. And it seems like it has a baseline a 6-second cast time and had 1 minute cooldown. Now it's down to a 30-second cooldown instead, and scales even more. So I can see Warlocks with a Succubus charming a target and then trying to get off a Soulfire and just almost one-shotting people now with this powerful spell. And then Searing Pain no longer has increased threat generation component. Developer comment, this threat removal is compensated by the new Wrathstone. I don't know what that is, but we'll probably get to it. Curse of Weakness now only has 1 rank and now reduce the attack speed of your target by 15% instead of a flat damage reduction. Corruption's cast time has been reduced from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds. And I see this has also been changed in the talent. So now the talent, instead of reducing the cast time by 2 seconds, which it was in original, now it just reduces the cast time by 1.5 seconds. So this improved still only just manages to make it instant cast. But this means that even without this talent, it's not as painful to try to get your corruption cast off as it was before having points in this talent. So points in this talent was more necessary before. Now it's less necessary, giving you some more choice, basically. So a small change, but makes sense, and I like that. It's basically if you buff a baseline spell but nerf the talent, then you can actually give more options talent-wise, and it's not so cookie cutter anymore. And this is without actually buffing anything. So I like this way of going about it. Baseline demon changes. Going forward, demons will not be able to benefit from player buffs and consumables. Allowing buffs on demons meant that you were actively discouraged from using enslave, greater demons, or swapping to other common demons because of the downside of losing all the buffs and consumes you and your raid put on your demon. This also made greater demons comparably weaker because they did not have all these buffs when summoned mid-combat. For Warlock specs that focus on their demon, this will be compensated by the Demonology tree buffs. So Demonology is going to see some buffs to demons, and in turn you can no longer buff the demons, which I think makes a lot of sense if you want to be swapping demons in and out depending on the fight, which you don't really see as much as on a hunter. So it makes more sense that maybe a hunter, they would allow hunter pets to be buffed, because you're not really swapping your pet mid-fight, or in a raid scenario, or in any scenario, basically. And but you are doing that on Warlock. Greater Demons, Infernal, Felguard, and Doomguard. These flavorful spells that are meant to allow you to summon powerful demons were severely underpowered and or clunky to use before and did not fit their intended fantasy. That's why we decided to rework them and address many pain points of using these spells, while also applying numbers balancing. These greater demons will no longer be a valid target for enslaved demon and will be immediately under the control of the Warlock when summoned. Will have set duration for how long you can control them, and after the time is up, they will turn on their master, without ensuing chaos for your whole party. Usefulness and power of these greater demons will be further enhanced in the deep Demonology tree. I must admit, I also like this change, because when were we ever seeing these demons played outside of just summoning some of them for fun? They weren't really useful in vanilla. They were there, but they weren't useful in any way. But that's gonna change here on Turtle WoW, and I must admit, I love to see some changes with that. Not that I'm playing Warlock myself, but I can just imagine for the Warlocks having a lot of spells just like the Hunter that are just sitting there collecting dust, because they're not really useful. Demon Gate renamed from Demon Portal, 30-minute cooldown, 4-second cast, no longer is a ritual, but instead drops down a Demon Gate object that spawns the Felguard after another 6 seconds, 1 minute duration. Inferno cooldown reduced from 20 minutes to 10 minutes, cast time reduced from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds, 30-second duration. Ritual of Doom lowered required players for the ritual from 4 players to 2 players, no longer randomly kills one of the participants, 1 minute duration. And the duration, I'm guessing these are the durations on the demons, like how long you're able to have the demon with you. So it's a kind of a power up, a buff, sort of like Bestial Wrath or something. You have the demon for a short amount of time, and then once the time runs out, the demon will attack its master. I actually don't know how much duration there was on these before, but I'm guessing you could have them for longer, but they probably weren't as impactful. But now that's going to change, so that's very interesting to see. And avoidance area of effect damage reduction has been increased from 50% to 80%, and it will also affect your greater and enslaved demons. This change was also made for hunters. Their pets' damage from AoE effects was increased from 50% on Turtle WoW to 80%, meaning that your pets, just like in TPC, your pets no longer gonna die to AoE abilities from raid encounters or PvP for that matter. A mage is using Arcane Explosion or Blizzard isn't gonna do the same amount of damage on your pet as single target damage will. Warriors trying to leave your pet. New and reworked Conjure Stone, Fellstone, Firestone, Wrathstone, and Spellstone. The original Firestone and Spellstone, while flavorful, were really inconvenient to use since they replaced your offhand. These new and reworked stones will serve as a new baseline personal buff for the Warlocks to use, with Demonology further improving them. All of these stones will now have one rank, will give a 30-minute buff on use, and are mutually exclusive and not usable in combat. I can actually see, because I don't know much about Warlock, but having these spellstones, and I knew they had some spellstones. Didn't really know the usefulness of them, but just seeing that they actually they took up your offhand, meaning you couldn't have, if you had a two-handed weapon like a staff, you couldn't have that equipped while having a spellstone. So I guess they would also just sit there and collect dust. So this really also adds some flavor and makes Warlock more interesting, I think. I don't actually know what these spellstones does. Oh, it says right here. We'll get into that in a second. But anyway, I think this is great, because this is just clunky and awkward. But now it's a 30-minute buff, so, and it's simplified to only one rank. So yeah, very interesting. Maybe I should play a Warlock now. All these changes actually sound really fun and interesting. And let's look at the stone effects. Firestone level 22, increase the critical strike chance of your fire spells by 2%, and your main hand and wand attacks have a 40% chance to deal 15 to 20 additional fire damage on hit. This damage is increased by an amount equal to your level, so mainly increasing damage on wands and just a little bit extra crit on your fire spells. And then there's Fellstone, learned at level 32, gives you a 3% damage dealt is returned as healing. Okay. Additionally, health restored this way will also heal your active demon. So I guess this is going to really help the survivability of the demon in PvP and also in PvE combat. And it seems to be scaling off of any damage you deal. So all your dots is going to return healing not only to you, but also to your pet. And the harder your dots hit, the more health you're going to get back. That seems a little bit strong, especially if you can put multiple dots, like in a PvP scenario, just dot every target on the battleground. You're going to be really tanky with this one, I think. Wrathstone, increase the threat generated by your fire spells by 40% and reduce self-inflicted fire damage from Hellfire spell by 30%. So it's great for Warlock tanks who needs to do a lot of AoE damage with the Hellfire spell, and gonna be a lot easier on the healers to keep him up while he's doing this spell. And then lastly, Spellstone, level 52, reduced threat generated by spells by 10%. Definitely the most interesting one is the Fellstone. I'm quite eager to see how this one works. I don't know how the previous one worked, but 3%. And if you dot multiple targets, that could really add up. I can even imagine, Warlocks in being able to solo dungeons, low-level dungeons, and boosting people with this one. Because if you just imagine you're just dotting everybody in Scalded Monastery, and you're constantly getting back health from the damage you deal. It's gonna be quite easy to boost others or just clear the instance really fast. Really depends on how much health this actually translates into, but yeah, interesting. Health stones will now all share the same cooldown, no matter their rank or number of talents spent in the Master Conjurer talent. In addition, Soulwell created health stones will also properly benefit from the Master Conjurer talent. And I guess Soulwell was implemented into Turtle WoW at the previous set of changes, because I don't remember that being in vanilla. You'd always have to trade, each player would have to trade the Warlock for a spellstone or a soulstone. Healthstone, not a soulstone, healthstone. So just like the mages, they have the table. People can press on and get their conjured foods instead of having to trade. Also a little bit extra convenience for Warlocks. And now less abuse on this one, since you can't abuse it with different ranks of which of course makes a lot of sense. Demon Skin and Demon Armor are getting merged into one spell. Existing Demon Skin ranks will be renamed to Demon Armor, and existing Demon Armor ranks will be bumped up by 2. These skills were basically the same, and this distinction caused unnecessary confusion. I don't know much about this, but I think this is one of the first spells that you're getting, and then it's just an upgrade later on, much like the Druid, isn't it? They get a bear form, and then they get a dire bear form later on, but it's basically just a bear form. It's just buffed bear form. So this makes a lot of sense, I think, just to merge these two and reduce bloat, spell bloat, and especially now since you're making all other spells more relevant, so to not overclutter some of these classes that has a lot of spells, merging some of them makes sense, I think. And now we move on to the class or specialization specific changes, starting with Affliction. Affliction at its core is decent, but lacks some identity, similarly to Demonology, lacking variations in its rotation. It also suffers from issues such as not being able to use Curse of Agony due to requiring to use raid support curses, such as Curse of Elements and Curse of Shadow, and overall suffering from the 16 debuff limit that was prevalent in original vanilla. This issue was fixed at an earlier version of Turtle, but we deemed it worthy of mentioning as it was the main blockade that stopped Affliction from properly functioning as a damage over time oriented specialization. We are fixing these issues with the revamp of Drained Soul, acting as a proper damage dealing ability, with Soul Siphon rewarding your damage over time effect upkeep by buffing your Drained Soul damage on the target, in addition to the new Dark Harvest capstone being added to your rotation. While the curse issue is resolved with the new Malediction capstone, allowing you to use Curse of Agony with other support curses. So if you didn't understand any of this, which I almost didn't, Drained Soul is now a proper damaging spell, so it's been buffed. Soul Siphon is going to buff it, I think, as far as I understand this, the spell or the talent Soul Siphon. And you're now allowed to use more than one curse on a target with this talent. So let's take a look at the talents. Malediction is this one. Your capstone, your Curse of Agony can now be used alongside your other curses, excluding Curse of Doom. And then the other talent that was talked about here, Soul Siphon, increase the damage of your Drained Soul, Dark Harvest, and Death Coil by an additional 4% for each of your Affliction effects on the target, up to a maximum of 4 effects. And just looking over many of the other talents and comparing them to the original, it really seems like there's a lot of very interesting changes made to Affliction. And it's really different from the original talent tree, with many of these talents actually being merged into one talent instead of being separate talents. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go back into the changes, because I'm guessing these will come one at a time. Improved Corruption now reduce the casting time on your Corruption spell by 1.5 seconds instead of 2 seconds. Developer comment, this change was made to accommodate for the baseline cast time reduction. Corruption still becomes a instant cast spell when the talents fully tasked, and we already talked about this one and why I think it's a good idea. Improved Curse of Weakness has been removed, and improved Drained Soul has been removed. And as this one has been removed, and Drained Soul, this one has also been removed and replaced by Resilient Shadows, reduce the duration of interrupt effects used against your shadow spells, and improved debilitating curses, which is Curse of Weakness and Curse of Exhaustion, which by the looks of it seems like you're getting Curse of Exhaustion baseline, maybe? I'm guessing. No, it's here. Okay, so that's just not even a capstone of anything now. It's just you get it a little bit earlier, it seems. And this one is the one that improves it instead of this one here. Well, let's get back to this one here. New talent, improved debilitating curses, 2 points, increase the attack speed reduction of your Curse of Weakness by 5%, and increase the speed reduction of your Curse of Exhaustion by 20%. Developer comment, refer to baseline changes section for more details on Curse of Weakness rework, which I can't really remember what it did before, but now it's attack speed reduction. And they're leaning into attack speed reduction with many things here on Turtle WoW as a debuff. So I see the use in PvE a lot, but not so much in PvP. And the other talent we already went over, Resilient Shadows, second row, 3 points, reduce the duration of interrupt effects used against your shadow spells. And I'm wondering if this also applies to silence effects, because it only says interrupt, but silence is also going to interrupt, right? And I would love to see something like this for the Elemental Shaman, actually, because this is, if you watch my Elemental Shaman video and the nerfs that I, in my opinion, think that the Elemental Shaman did get in PvP specifically, this would help them a lot, because if you silence a shaman, and I already went over this in the shaman video, so I won't dwell too much on this, but if you silence a shaman, he's locked out of all his spells, because most of his spells are nature spells, And they implemented something similar to this in TBC for Elemental, or it's actually for Resto Shamans, but it was because it was in the Resto tree, but I think Elemental Shaman also went for that talent. And I think it's sorely needed, something similar to this for Elemental Shamans. But that's my rant. Moving on to improved drains. Now increase the amount of mana drained by your drain mana by 10% instead of dealing damage equal to 30% of the mana drained. So mana drain isn't gonna be doing any damage anymore, I'm guessing, which I kind of like in a way, because the Warlocks are getting so many other things that just increasing the amount mana drained makes a lot more sense for a talent that improves mana drain, right? A spell that's called mana drain. The next one, improved Curse of Agony, now is a requirement for getting the new talent Malediction, and the damage bonus increased from 6% to 10%. Let's take a look at this talent. This one, improved Curse of Agony, and is required to get Malediction later on. Curse of Exhaustion is here, and we haven't gotten this far yet. Improved Drains. Life tap seems to be the same. Suppression seems to be the same. Spell Concentration now also affects Dark Harvest, and as this one gives you a 70% chance to avoid interruption caused by damage while channeling the Drain Life, Drain Mana, Dark Harvest, or Drain Soul spell. And Curse of Exhaustion moved from the 5th row to the 3rd row, and the slow amount increased from 10% to 30%. So previously, Curse of Exhaustion would slow the target's movement speed by 10% for 12 seconds, and you'd have to put 4 points into improved Curse of Exhaustion to reach 30%. Is that right? That seems like a really, really weak. Doesn't Curse of Exhaustion slow for more? Maybe there are different ranks of Curse of Exhaustion as you get higher in level. I'm not sure, but I think it's isn't it usually more than this? That it slows, even in vanilla. I'm going on a limb here, guys, because I'm really not deep into Warlocks. But that seems like a really weak spell, to be honest. But then again, a curse you can apply from a distance, and it's constant. I don't think is there a massive cooldown on this? I don't think there is. So maybe it's fair enough. So now it's a total of 30%. No, sorry, 50%, right? Because Curse of Exhaustion is 30%, and then improved debilitating curses increase the Curse of Exhaustion by 20%, making it a total of 50% movement speed reduction. So that seems stronger, where it was, as far as I can see, only 30% before. Oh, I see. It's because if you use if you use Amplify Curse, it will increase the effect of your Curse of Exhaustion by 20%, and that's gonna make it a 50% slow instead of a 30%. So you had to use this to make it worth it. But it looks like Amplify Curse has been entirely removed, and maybe it's just baseline, or it's just removed and the power of it has been embedded into the Affliction tree. We'll probably get to that later on. Improved Curse of Exhaustion has been removed. Amplify Curse has been removed. There's really no text that says if it's been made baseline, but I don't think it has, because I think if they would have done that, they'd say so in the text here. There would have been a developer comment saying so. So it seems like the power of Amplify Curse has just been embedded into the talent tree instead. And then we have Nightfall, now triggered by Corruption, Dark Harvest, and all Drain spells instead of Corruption and Drain Life, and now has 3 ranks with a 1, 3, and 5% chance to proc. So that's this one. Your Corruption, Dark Harvest, and Drain spells. And before, it gives your Corruption, Drain Life spells a 4% chance, a 4% chance to cause you to enter Shadow Trance state after damaging an opponent. Shadow Trance state reduce the casting time of your next Shadow Bolt by 100%. And that's actually been buffed a little bit, so now it's 5%. And buffed even more if you consider that it's all Drains, Corruption, and Dark Harvest, which we will be getting to later on, but that seems to be this one, which was Dark Pact before, which I think was quite weak, right? I don't think people actually went for this talent. And there's a new talent, Rapid Deterioration. 5th row, 2 points, increase the casting speed of your Affliction spells by 6%. In addition, casting speed effects increase the tick speed of your damage over time, and channeled Affliction spells with 100% efficiency, reducing their duration. Developer comment, this talent might seem hard to utilize due to the casting speed increase not being widespread in gear, but we are also adding alternative tier sets for Affliction that replace the mostly useless critical strike chance with casting speed alongside set bonuses catered towards the specialization. And it's true that there are not much, especially in vanilla, there are none in vanilla, but I think Turtle WoW, they do have a lot of gear that increase, especially compared to vanilla, where there is none. Turtle WoW has added casting speed on existing gear, and the new gear that they've implemented into the game has also seen this stat casting speed, increased casting speed on many items, be it in small amounts like 2% here and there, 5% probably being the max on an item or somewhere along that line. But this being very interesting and very fun to play around with. It seems like something that was implemented later on in retail. It is a very interesting way of increasing the Warlock's damage, not only through direct spell damage, but also making your dots tick faster with casting speed, increasing your gear options, basically, making gear more interesting. And let's see if we can find rapid deterioration. That's this one. Siphon life seems to have been increased, but we'll probably get to that one. Here's rapid deterioration, increase the casting speed of your affliction spells. Is Shadow Bolt a affliction spell? So it would maybe also increase the casting speed of your Shadow Bolt. I don't know what else there are as like spells that are casted spells for Affliction Warlock. Most of them are fire spells, right? Except for, of course, Shadow Bolt, which is maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure, but I think it might be a affliction spell. And then there's the Malediction. Curse of Agony can now be used alongside your other curses, excluding Curse of Doom. And the other new talent, Soul Siphon, we also went over this one before. 3 points, increase the damage of your Drain Soul, Dark Harvest, and Death Coil by an additional 4%. Each of your affliction effects on the target up to a maximum of 4 effects, which is this one. So it's a 16% damage increase if you have 4 affliction effects up on the target. Then your Dark Harvest, your Drain Soul, and your Death Coil are going to be doing 16% more damage. And developer comment, the debuff effects caused by drain spells do not contribute toward this effect. Yeah, so it's doing more, it's increasing the damage of your drain spells, but it's not counting the drain spell as one of the 4 effects. And then there's Dark Pact has been removed, and instead you are getting a new talent called Dark Harvest, which is the last talent. Reap your target's life, dealing 700 damage over 8 seconds. Reduce the time between periodic ticks of your affliction spells on the target by 20% while channeling. It has a flat mana cost, a 30-second cooldown, and new ranks will be learned at 50 and 60, increasing the damage to 1150. So it's a channel just like a drain life spell. It just does a lot more damage and lasts 8 seconds, and then it also increased the ticks of your other affliction spells by 20% while being channeled. So a really strong, I think really strong spell right here. And that is the last one here, Dark Harvest. And I think the rest have been left untouched. Damage dealt by the drain life, increase the damage dealt or drain or life drained by your shadow spells, and that seems to be the same. Grim Reach seems to be the same as well. 20% range increase, giving you 36 yards on most spells. So overall, I see a lot of buffs to Affliction's talents and some very interesting new spells to play around with. It seems like a lot of thought has been put into making pretty much all the Warlock's spells viable and interesting and useful, and which is great. I just wish, I wish the same effort was put into the Hunter. Anyway, I think the Hunter is still sitting on some very useless spells here and there. But that's not for now. Let's move on to Demonology. While the core identity of this spec is solid in theory, gameplay-wise, there wasn't much that supported it or differentiated it from the other 2 Warlock specializations. Another huge inconsistency in the original vanilla design was the placement of demonic sacrifice so deep into the tree, because it directly clashes with the focus of the rest of the tree. Compared to the other pet specializations, the Beast Mastery Hunter, we decided to focus on exploitation of your demons and other forbidden resources like the Soul Stones, which fits the flavor of Demonology Warlock well. Just like Beast Mastery though, demons will be getting some form of scaling from their master's power. Interesting. So they're also getting scaling, giving scaling to the Warlock's pets, and making some interesting changes in the Demonology tree. Soul Entrapment. While you have no demon under your control, all damage dealt is increased by 3%. And let's just take a look at the talent. That's this one here. While you have no demon under your control, all damage dealt is increased by 3%. And it seems like improved imp has been removed here, which was here before. Increased effective Imp's Firebolt, Fire Shield, and Blood Pact, and that's been just removed. Demonic Sacrifice. Demonic Sacrifice has been moved higher in the tree and has a new prerequisite talent that both focus on the demon-less Warlock playstyle for the other two specializations to pick. The effects are Imp, increase your fire damage by 6%, Void Walker, restore 3% of your total health every 4 seconds, Succubus, increase your shadow damage by 6%, and Fell Hunter, restore 2% of your total mana every 4 seconds. So if you sacrifice these pets, these are the buffs that you're getting. And Demonic Sacrifice was down here in the vanilla tree, which gave you 15% fire damage, 3% health every 4 seconds for the Void Walker. Succubus, increase your shadow damage, and Fell Hunter, restore 2% total mana every 4 seconds. And now it's here 6% fire damage instead, so it's not as strong. Void Walker was 3% health every 4 seconds, so that's the same. Succubus, increase your damage, your shadow damage by 6%. That's also been reduced from the earlier version. And Fell Hunter, 2% total mana every 4 seconds, which is the same. But you're now able to get this a lot earlier in the tree, so other talent specializations can take advantage of Demonic Sacrifice if you want to go around as a fire warlock or a affliction only warlock without a pet. Then it's just about sacrificing the correct demon. And it seems like the effect before would last 30 minutes, and here the effect is cancelled if any common demon is summoned. So now you don't need to sacrifice the demon every 30 minutes. It seems now the effect is kind of permanent until you summon a demon. And I kind of wish that the hunter, now I'm going at it with the hunter again, I know, but I just can't stop. But comparing this to my favorite class, I kind of wish that hunter had something with, if you dismiss your pet or your pet dies in combat, you get a 5% damage increasing buff or something similar to that. Maybe not 5%, maybe 10%. I don't know what's equivalent to the pet's damage, but something in the ballpark of the damage that the pet would do. So you actually also have the option of being a lone hunter, just like here you have the option of being a lone warlock without your demon. So I hope Turtle WoW would implement something like this. Very easy. If you dismiss your pet or it dies, the hunt just has a 5% damage increase. But moving on, Master Conjurer. Healthstones created with different ranks of this talent will now be mutually unique, meaning that you will always be able to only have one healthstone at a time. Yes, that's fine. And improved healthstone is the one that has been renamed to Master Conjurer. Before, it only affected your healthstone by 20%, and now increase the amount of health restored by a healthstone by 20%, and health and mana your soulstone target is resurrected with by 20%. So a little buff to this one as well. And Demonic Embrace seems to be the exact same. Increase the stamina by 15% and reduce the spirit, and that's also what it does in vanilla. Soul funnel spells. Funnel spells, even with this talent, were pretty underpowered. That's why this talent will now scale with the missing health/mana of your demon, lowering the warlock's dependency on other players healing their demon in clutch situations, will also synergizing with the new power overwhelming capstone ability. I did not understand any of that, but it sounds interesting. Funnel spell, is that the ones that you use to heal the pet with, will now scale with the missing health of your demon. Yeah, it sounds like that. So the more health the demon is missing, the more powerful your healing spells come. And that's this one. Increase the amount of health transferred and mana from your funnel spell, the demon. So the amount is the same, but now it seems to be mana as well. So this one was just health. The vanilla version is just health, and now it's also mana. And it now increases with the baseline spell increase its potency the more health and mana that your pet is missing, making it scale a little bit. And then Demonic Aegis moved to row 2. And that's this one. Increased the effectiveness of your demon armor, which was demon skin, and demon armor has been merged into one. So this will also affect that one. And increase the effectiveness of your demon armor by 60%. And that is replacing improved Void Walker. Increase the effectiveness of your Void Walker's Torment, Consume Shadow, Sacrifice, and Suffering spells. And maybe this one has been embedded into something else. We'll see as we move along. And then we have Fell Intellect, replaced static benefits with Fell Intellect scaling based on 35% of your total intellect, and allows 75% of your demons mana regeneration to continue while casting. So great buff to the demon's sustainability in terms of how much mana it has. And that was this one before, which is just a flat amount of mana increase to the pet, or it's a percentage amount of mana increase, but it's a very static amount. While this one scales with your intellect, so increase your demon's intellect by 35% of your intellect and allows 75% of the demon's mana regeneration to continue even while the demon is casting, right? That's how I understand it. So that's really, really strong now compared to the vanilla version. And then there's fell stamina as well. Replaced static benefit with stamina scaling based on 35% of total health and reduced the chance of them being critically struck by 5%. And that's this one right below it, scaling by 35% of your stamina and reduce the chance to be critically struck, meaning that Warlock pets will now be impossible to kill. And the previous one was just a 15% maximum health buff. And Fell Domination reduced the cooldown of this ability from 15 minutes to 5 minutes. The cast time reduction from 5.5 seconds to 4 seconds, so a little bit of nerf there, and a little bit of buff on the on how often you can use it. This change gives Demonology more versatility in swapping demons based on their situation. In addition, lowers the cooldown of your Inferno spell by 5 minutes and the cooldown of your Demon Gate by 15 minutes, bringing the other demons into play. But it doesn't say anything about the other two, neither the Demon Gate nor the Inferno spell, which it says here in the changes, but maybe that's been nerfed again, but it doesn't, for some reason it isn't in here in the talent tree. Maybe we'll figure that out as we get later on, because maybe there has been some changes, but we do not know yet why, or if it's just they forgot to implement it into the online talent tree, because I did read that right, didn't I? Yeah, it is Fell Domination. Okay, we'll have to see as we move along, but anyway, let's move on to Master Summoner. Increase the mana reduction to 40 and 60% to again incentivize easier demon switching, and now it also lowers the cooldown of your Inferno, Demon Gate, and Ritual of Doom by 50%. So does this also reduce it even further, or has this thing here been moved down here? It's a bit confusing now. Let's have a look at the talents. Master Summoner, reduce the casting time of your demon summoning spells by 4 seconds, mana cost by 60. In addition, lowers the cooldown of your Inferno, Demon Gate, and Ritual of Doom by 50%. And the previous one reduced the casting time of your Imp, Voidwalker, Succubus, and summoning spells by 2 seconds and mana cost by 4 seconds and mana cost by 40%. So maybe it's just this effect from Fell Domination, the other demons that's been moved into Master Summoner, that just lowers the cooldown by 50%. I think it is. So this is just this is actually part of the next one here. I think so. That was a bit confusing. So moving on, improved stones. 4th row, 2 points, increase the effect of your Wrath Stone and Spell Stone by 50%, increase the damage returned as healing by your Fell Stone by 1 and then 2%, and critical strike bonus of your Fire Stone by 2%. And that is this one, improved stones. And it seems to be, isn't that a completely new talent? I think it is. No, it was this one before, improved Firestone, and then it probably had some, it has improved Spellstone down here, but these two seems to have emerged into one talent and put up here, giving you improved stones, increasing the effect of your Wrath Stone by 50%, increase the damage returned as healing of your Fellstone, and critical strike damage bonus of your Firestone. So healing is increased to 5% from your Fellstone. Firestone was that 2%, and now it's 4%, right? So there's 4% more critical strike chance on your 5 spells and 50% more on the 2 others. So also a very strong talent. And then there's Nether Studies. Replace the original 3 demon specific talents with this new general utility talent while replacing the damage boosting effect. Nether Studies replace the original 3 demon specific talents with this new general utility talent while replacing the damage boosting effects of the other demon scaling talents deeper into the tree. The new effect is increase the effect of your Succubus Seduction, your Voidwalker's Torment, and your Imp's Blood Pact, and your Fellhunter's Tainted Blood by 45%. And that's this one, Nether Studies. And that seems to be in a way replacing this one, improved Succubus, along with Unholy Power. Not really, because Unholy Power is still here. Increase the damage of your demons by 15% instead of 20%. Yeah, so it's improved Imp, improved Succubus, and improved Voidwalker. Those 3 seems to have been moved into Nether Studies, which is really awesome, I think. Instead of being 30% on most of these, it's 45%. And then there's another new here, Unholy Power. Oh, it seems to not be a new. It says Unholy Power changed from 5 to 3 points. Damage increase reduced to 15%, and now
affects all demons. Oh, and that's this one here, yeah. Unholy Power, reduced to 3 points, but gives 15% damage instead of 20%. And then there's Unleashed Potential, 5th row, 3 points. Your direct damage spells has a 60% chance, and your funnel spells have a 100% chance to grant your demon Unleashed Potential for 3 seconds. While Unleashed Potential is active, your demon's attack power is increased by 60% of your bonus spell damage, and its damage done by magical spells and effects is increased by 15% of your spell damage. And already there's a mistake here because this is row 6 and its Unleashed Potential is here and it says it should be up here. So I think something's happened maybe in game, I haven't checked, or it's just not been updated on the talent calculator, but I guess that there is a change and this one has been moved down here. So Unleashed Potential is now row 6 instead of row 5. Still 3 talent points and it does the same as it says it does, which is you have a chance on your damage spells and your funnel spells to give the pet this Unleashed Potential. While Unleashed Potential is active, your demon attack power is increased by 60%, magical spells increased by 15%. And it scales off of your spell damage. Both of them scales off of your spell damage, which is very, very, very scary. If he has a strong demon like a Felguard or a Inferno or something like that. And then there's Power Overwhelming, is the row 5 capstone. Grant your demon Power Overwhelming that increase the damage dealt by 20% for 10 seconds. The demon receives 40% of its health as damage over the duration. 40-second cooldown, 7 base mana cost. And that is this one. Grant your active demon Power Overwhelming. For 10 seconds it does 20 more damage, but it takes 40% of its health as damage. So basically use this one and your pet will have almost half health, or will get half health over 10 seconds. So it will be easier to kill the pet. That is where Demonic Sacrifice was before. Developer comment, this new capstone ability serves to differentiate your playstyle as Demonology Warlock from the other 2 specializations, while also putting a greater emphasis on managing your demons. It also makes it easier to dispose of your greater demons when their time is running out. Okay, yeah, so you actually could pop this when the time is running out on your demon, and if you time this correctly, then the pet will be half health as it turns on you. Right before it actually turns on its master, it'll be half health and easier for you to kill. Well, up to that point, it gets a little bit of a damage buff. And then there is Demonic Precision. Your demon gains 3% increased melee and spell hit chance. In addition, they now benefit from 100% of your own spell hit chance for both melee and spell hit chance. So spell hit chance increase the pet's melee and spell hit chance. Developer comment, similarly to Hunter pets, demons also lack hit chance in the end game rating environment. This talent addresses it by transferring your hit to your demons, which was actually also one of my suggestions for the Hunter talent, but they went a little bit a different way with the Hunter talent, just making the talent be carrying all the hit for the pet, while in here it scales off of the Warlock's hit chance. And that is this one, Demonic Precision, and of course mostly useful in PvE. And then there is Master Demonologist. Reworked bonuses to further support the unique strength of each demon and incentivize swapping based on the situation you find yourself in. Also, additional effects were added for Infernal and Felguard that give you more power at the cost of downsides, further emphasizing their borrowed power flavor. Let's just take a look at the talent and then also compare it to Master Demonologist in original. So in original, reduce threat of your imp, Wardwalker reduce damage taken, and this is granted to both the pet and the warlock. Succubus increased all damage cost, and Fellhunter increased all resistance by 1 per level. Instead, now imp reduced the spell cost by 15% and increased the casting speed by 5%. Wardwalker reduced physical damage taken by 10% and increase pushback resistance by 40%. Succubus increased all damage done by 10% and threat cost by 5%. Fellhunter increased all resistance by 1 per level, and enemies attacking you have a 10% chance to get affected by tainted blood on hit. What is tainted blood? Did we go over that before? Tainted blood, is that a Fellhunter spell? I'm not sure. Anyway, Infernal. So these are completely new. Increase the casting and attack speed by 15%, but reduce healing taken by 50%. And then there's Felguard. Increases all damage done by 20%, but increase mana cost by 20% more damage done. Holy shit. Both casting and attack, the last two are both really strong, but they are all really strong in their own way and very interesting. Like on paper, Demonology Warlock seems insanely strong. And then there's the last one, Soul Link. Your demon is while your demon is under your control, the damage dealt by you and the demon is increased by 5%. In addition, 20% of all damage you take is taken by the demon instead. In addition, your greater demons can no longer break out from under your control early. Okay, so there is something with them being able to break out earlier, but if you get this one, they won't be able to. It lasts the entire duration. And the previous version, the vanilla version, gives you a 30% of your damage taken goes to the pit, and the damage buff was only 3%, not 5%. Now it's 5%, but you also take 10% more damage compared to vanilla. There was really, really a lot to unpack here with the Demonology tree, and I think it's really interesting what they've done. Very impactful, big changes for the Warlock, like really big changes and really interesting changes. I think a lot of thought and depth has been went into these changes, especially compared to some of the other classes that I saw. That this is there's really a lot of changes here. And let's just read the skill here. Reduce the damage you transfer to your demon from 30% to 20%, so a little bit of a nerf here, and increase the damage bonus from 3% to 5%. This skill will now be a passive, so you don't have to reactivate it every time you change your demon. It will apply to any demon under your control, both your greater demons and enslaved ones, and will be simply inactive if you don't have any demon under your control. So if your demon is sacrificed, it just disappears. So it's a complete passive. You don't need to activate. So yeah, a lot of meaningful choice when it comes to Demonology. A lot of interesting additions, not only early on in the tree, but also in the later parts of it. And yeah, just overall some great changes, I think, given that I'm not that deep into Warlock and I don't know, I don't know that much about the class, but just reading on the surface, these changes, like combining 3 talents into one, it basically just does something to a single demon, then instead of that now affects all 3 demons. I think that makes a lot more sense, instead of having to spend and spread out your points like for every single demon, especially now that the thing that they're going for, it seems, is that you're actually utilizing different demons throughout fights and to a much greater degree than you were before. And also now being able to use your Inferno and Enslaved Demons and Felguard and stuff like that, which weren't really used before. Very nice. But let's move on to the final specialization, Destruction, and see what they've changed. Destruction serves as the primary damage dealing specialization for Warlock in vanilla, but these specializations are often a mix of talents such as Shadow, Mastery/Ruin, and Demonic Sacrifice/Ruin, meaning deeper talents in the specialization are ignored after acquiring Ruin. This is primarily the case as Immolation is 2 mana intensive to constantly cast, while Searing Pain has a threat modifier that doubles as threat you generate, forcing you to constantly stop casting in order to not over-aggro the targets you're damaging. To solve these issues, we've removed the threat modifier from Searing Pain, check baseline changes for more details, tinkered with the numbers on Soulfire baseline, and via the new improved Soulfire talents to make it a viable ability to use on cooldown, and made Conflagration a more desirable capstone to top off this specialization. First off, improved Shadow Bolt now has a flat 25% chance of proccing instead of on critical strike. Shadow damage increase reduced from 20% to 15%, duration reduced from 12 seconds to 10 seconds, and no longer has charges that cause it to be removed when spent. That was the old one here. Your Shadow Bolt critical strikes increase shadow damage dealt to the target by 20% until 4 non-periodic damage sources are applied. Effect lasts a maximum of 12 seconds. But now it says 25% chance to increase shadow damage dealt to the target by 15% for 10 seconds. So it doesn't affect, it's not only on non-periodic spells, so meaning this is also applied on your dots where it was not before. And now it's a chance on hit and not a chance on crit, meaning this will proc a lot more often. And Cataclysm mana cost reduction increased from 5% to 10%. That's this one. And then we have improved Lash of Pain and improved Firebolt have been merged into
2 points talent into a 2-point talent in the second row. Demonic Swiftness. Reduce the casting time on your Imp's Firebolt by half a second and reduce the cooldown on your Succubus Lash of Pain by 6 seconds. And that's these two that has been merged together into this one. Reduce the cast time on your Imp's Firebolt and cooldown on your Succubus Lash of Pain. Bane seems to be the exact same as it was before. And then we have Aftermath. I've seen multiple changes. Now requires 3 points instead of 5 points for the same chance of days. Also increase the periodic damage of your Immolate by 6%, and description updated to say that it slows by 50% instead of days. Developer comment: this days listed in the description never actually worked like a daze and was quite misleading, so this was corrected to specify that it actually functions like all other slows. I'm guessing the difference between a daze and a slow is that the slow can be dispelled or trinketed, right, while a daze cannot. I think that's the difference. And since it never really dazed in the first place, the description has just been corrected in that regard. And that was this one. It's now a 6% and a 10% chance to slow the target, and before it was just a 10% to slow the target for 5 seconds. Now it does add 6% damage to your immolation spells. And then there's a new talent, improved Soulfire. 5th row, 2 points. Your Soulfire has a 100% chance to refund a soul shard and increase your fire damage by 8% for 25 seconds. And that's all the way down here, improved Soulfire. But before that, let's just take a look at intensity as well. This talent has seen a slight change. Instead of saying specific spells, like this old one here, it says resist interruption caused by damaging spells when channeling Rain of Fire, Hellfire, and Soulfire. Now this one says chance to not lose casting time when you take damage, and this is from all fire spells, so it affects more spells. And your Shadow Burn, that seems to be slightly buffed. It says right here a little bit more damage, 91 to 104, and this is 87 to 100, and the rest seems to be the same. And Devastation, increase the critical strike chance of your destruction spells, and that is also the same as it was before. And Destructive Reach has also seen a slight change. This one just says destruction spells, and here it says increase the range of your destruction spells and the radius of your Rain of Fire and Hellfire spells. So added Rain of Fire and Hellfire radius. And Pyroclasm also seems to be the same, but it's been moved up 1 row. So it was row 5 before, and now is row 4. And improved Searing Pain, increase the critical strike chance of your Searing Pain spell by 10%, and it's still the same. And they also say here that Intensity and Pyroclasm have been moved up a row, and improved Immolate now increases all damage dealt by Immolate instead of just the initial damage, but the damage increase has been reduced from 25% to 20%. But now it's the overall damage of Immolate and not just the initial damage of Immolate. And Ruin seems to be the exact same as before. Increase the critical strike damage bonus of your destruction spells by 100%. And then there is Conflagrate, no longer requires and consumes an active Immolate damage over time effect to cast. Instead, it consumes 3 seconds of your Immolate spell to deal damage equal to it on the target if it's active. So it doesn't need to be active, but if it's active, it does some of the damage of your Immolate spell to the target. Additionally, its global cooldown has been reduced from 1.5 seconds to 1 second. This change is reflected in the spell description. And here we have it, Conflagrate, and it just says this ability has a shorter grace period before you can cast it again. And it also actually seems to do a little bit more damage. It says right here, 249 to 316, and here it says 240 to 307. And Ember Storm seems to also be the exact same as it was before. Increase the damage done by your fire spells by 10%, and that is also the vanilla version. So not that many changes for destruction, just slight changes making spells more useful and improving the way some of the spells function. And it seems only 1 new talent was really added, and these 2 was merged. And then there are some updates. The first set of updates: Conjure Stones no longer share 30-minute cooldown. They are instead unusable while in combat. Fell Domination changed cooldown to 5 minutes and no longer lock your demon from summoning. And that sounds like it has been some sort of bug here with this part. And added new effect to Master Summoner. In addition, lowers the cooldown on your Inferno, Demon Gate, and Ritual of Doom spell by 50%. I know we talked about this before. I'm still a little bit confused on why some of the changes say something and the talent says something else, but someone in the comments will likely tell me what's going on. And then there's another set of updates. Increase the shadow damage bonus granted by improved Shadow Bolt from 15% to 20%. So they went back on this one and actually buffed this one again, apparently the Warlock is lacking damage somehow, and power overwhelming mana cost has been reduced to 80 mana. I do not know what it was before. Now, I don't play Warlock, but these changes are extremely intriguing. I think that Warlock has seen some of the most interesting changes here on Turtle WoW, and I really like the flavor that they're going for. You can really tell that there's a lot of difference in how each specialization plays now, and there's really an incentive to go for the last talents in each specialization now, where there weren't before. You Warlocks who play Warlock, let me know how this functions. Are you happy with the changes they've done to Warlock? At least on paper, everything seems really interesting, and maybe if Warlock is lacking in any area or is overpowered in another area, I think it's a matter of tuning different spells to make up for that. At least the choices that have been made in terms of talents and just interesting choices you can make. It's just overall, I really feel like this has been improved a ton, and I'm intrigued to a point where I almost want to try and play a Warlock with these changes. And I've never really played Warlock. I think I've once gotten a Warlock to level 10, and that's probably it. So, but it's quite interesting to see all these changes. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give the video a like, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I'll also, once I'm done with the last class that I need, the warrior class, I'll probably look into doing a series on Turtle WoW called What I Found, where I go around and discover and look at all the new places and zones they've added on the server. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Turtles. Where are the turtles? Where are the turtles? Come on, guys, get out of here. Where are the turtles?